All right, let's talk about a bigger model that has a much more complex architecture. Is that possible to easily animate and show in the Omniverse as well? Let's look at the inventory digital twin developed by Goldratt Research Labs. As we'll see in a bit, this is quite a complex model. There's actually several models, a lot of hierarchy, a lot of technical stuff under the hood, developed well before Omniverse was even a thing or started development. So is that ready to be used in Omniverse? Let's first look at the model. This is quite a useful thing. It started out as an educational tool to teach you about replenishment policies, but these days it's actually a true digital twin that you can use for your live supply chains and warehouses, feed it with real data and see how it performs. And the core of the tool is basically the comparison ability of using different replenishment policies like min-max, the latest DDMRP, TOC, theory of constraints. Lots of charts, lots of insight, lots of cool things. But if you're an attention-filled CEO, the one thing that you really like is the little 3D button. So let's have a look what that looks like. So in 3D, this is a very simple representation of very simple test data, but you can visualize your supply chains. You have a couple of deliverers that produce raw materials for you, and you send out different orders and different sizes and different intervals to those factories, and they deliver their raw materials again in different quantities and different time intervals. And in your warehouse, you can see how that impacts your storage capacity. So that, for some decision makers, might be a lot more easy to understand. Now, how does that look like in Omniverse, you think? Let's have a look. So there we are. This is a simple export. Nothing has really changed. I literally just click play and everything is automated. So you can see the standard Anylogic animations for the trucks. It's nicely rendered. You can do and already do cool things with this. And even in a live session, you can now make this look better. This is always just the starting point. So in Nvidia Omniverse, in this USD composer, while the model is running, even then we can improve this model. Let's say you're kind of, you don't like these simplified trees. Well, you can just delete them live and use the Nvidia store to drag in a different tree. Just make sure that the scale is okay. And you have a nice tree now instead of that simplified one. And this is Omniverse. This is very, very powerful graphics. If you zoom into this thing, you will see it's down to individual leaves. And this would obviously be impossible in the 3D engine in Anylogic, but in Omniverse it's all about rendering efficiently. And if you invest a little bit of time, you can make this look extremely realistic if you like. Now again, where's the value in that? Well, value comes from those decision makers. So if a decision maker can actually visit the warehouse that he's supposed to invest 50 million in, that's a bonus. That's useful. But if he can visit it, in person, that's a whole other story. Let's have a look at that. All right, so here we are. We are in our shop, and very easily we can now walk through our shop and see what's going on and visit all the details in this shop. This is still default Anylogic scene rendering. So a lot of stuff that has been rendered here for you. Very dark room here, but you can test out all these things. And if you would build up your warehouse, you could walk through the aisles and see how things are going, or you take the bird's eye view and watch the whole supply chain and animate that, no problem. Now let's explore some technical things here. This model, as I said, is a bit more advanced because it's actually two models. There's a base model that has the logic of everything, and then there is the kind of front-end model that holds all the hand-holding and animating stuff for users. So on main of the animation model, there is no 3D. There is no 3D window, and there is no definition of that world. It actually sits deeper in the hierarchy in a specific agent type. In this case, we put it into animation 3D. So this is where the 3D model sits and where that animation sits. This could also be data-driven, but if I wanted to render this statically into the Omniverse, it wouldn't easily be possible, but we are in Anylogic, everything is always possible. So let me show you how you could do this. You can simply create a new model and just copy over your animation into there. You know, just take all this stuff and copy it into your new model just on main, drag in a little 3D animation. And very last thing, just make sure that your scale, the scale object, actually matches the scale from your original model. And now with this, you can easily render this into the Omniverse. So this will actually render the static scene into Omniverse. If I click render model, I'm saying please render whatever you see here, all this static stuff, render it into a model.usd file. And this is what we see in Omniverse then. So this is the static scene just rendered from Anylogic. It sits in this model.usd file down here. This is where all the data is in there, and I can look at it. And everything else, all the dynamic stuff, you know, what do the cars look like, is then put into separate USD files. And when I have exported this once, when I've rendered it once, I don't need this model anymore. I don't need the static scene anymore. From now on, when I run my normal model, it will connect to that static USD file. So running the model, it now sends continuous updates to that USD scene. And the way it does that is via this Omniverse connector object. So in my animation 3D, I'm saying, please send this all to this model USD file, the same one where I put the static scene in previously. So everything is sent here. If I now connect to this live session, it will pick up the live data and we see our animation. Very quick and easy. So a couple of notes from my experience the last couple of weeks and months of testing this. It's once you understand Omniverse, once you understand USD file format and the kind of philosophy behind it, it's very easy to get this stuff done. It's a couple of clicks. And from then on, it's up to you. What do you make of this? How realistic do you want this to be? It's similar to how Anylogic allows you to have a web front end and run models on your web front end. But what you do with that web front end is your decision. You can build the most elaborate web page or just a single button. It's up to you and up to your use case. So that's the flexibility is great. What you do need though is not a weak machine. Just running Omniverse and connecting to Anylogic and rendering it typically not too heavy. You do need a graphics card, you know, for Omniverse to even work, but it doesn't have to be a super beefy one unless you start dragging in a lot of trees and stuff. What you do need a beefy graphic cards for is if you want to go down that route. These VR headsets eat graphics power like crazy. I've got an RTX 4090, which is the best that you can get, and with that, no problem at all. With a Pimax Crystal headset that I have, it looks 100% realistic. You don't see pixels anymore, anything like that. So it's super, super powerful and very, very cool, but you do need the power. All right, thanks a lot.